The year was 741 AD. Emperor Leo III, founder of the Isaurian Dynasty, passed away. He had greatly stabilized the military front against the Arabs, whose Umayyad caliphate was disintegrating. The stage was set for the reign of Constantine V, an able ruler and relentless soldier whose uncompromising religious policies would cast a long shadow over his legacy. Born during the Arab siege of Constantinople, Constantine had been groomed for the throne. The year prior to his accession, he and his father participated in the great victory at Akroinon. Yet, his legitimacy was not secured. A challenger arose for the Roman scepter, his brother-in-law, Artavasdos. As a supporter of Leo's claim to power back in 717, and having ties to the dynasty, Artavasdos believed that he should be emperor. When Constantine prepared for a campaign in the east and moved to the Opsikion Thema to rally local troops, Artavasdos launched his rebellion. Defeated, Constantine retreated to the safety of Amorion. The last Greek Pope of Rome, Zacharias, assumed office in December. With Constantine tied up in the east, Zacharias resorted to his diplomatic acumen to safeguard papal interests. Early in his papacy, he persuaded Lombard king Liutprand to abandon his planned assault on Rome and to restore several cities previously seized from the Duchy of Rome. Artavasdos secured his position in Constantinople, gaining political support by presenting himself as a restorer of icons, thus setting himself apart from the iconoclast Isaurians. He sent his son, Niketas, to rally support from the Armeniacon, while his other son, Nikephoros, was crowned by the Patriarch. Emperor Constantine, far from idle, rallied support while recovering in Amorion. Backed by the Thracian and Anatolikon themata, he marched against Artavasdos, defeating him at Sardis and pursuing him to Kyzikos. Yet, once Artavasdos took refuge behind the formidable Theodosian walls, there was little Constantine could do. Niketas rushed to his father's defense with troops from the Armeniacon and quite a few Armenian allies. However, Constantine once again prevailed, this time at Modrine. His military capabilities were already becoming evident. This civil strife drew the attention of Arab commander Suleiman ibn Hisham, who exploited the turmoil with raids into Anatolia. Constantine pressed his advantage by blockading Constantinople, bringing severe hardship to the city. Artavasdos, desperate to confront the young emperor, launched a fleet armed with Greek fire, but was forced to retreat. Niketas attempted the same at Chrysopolis, only to be defeated and later captured at Nicomedia. With their efforts spent, Constantinople's fall was imminent. After a prolonged blockade, Constantine stormed and reclaimed the capital. Artavasdos and his sons were all captured and blinded, then publicly humiliated in a parade through the hippodrome, the first of many such displays under Constantine. In time, the emperor would become known for using public punishment to assert authority and break his enemies' will. As for Artavasdos' followers, many were executed. Even Sicinius, the strategos of the Thracian and a former ally of Constantine, was found guilty of conspiracy and put to death. Now aware of how precarious his hold on power truly was, Constantine moved to curb the authority of provincial commanders and strengthen central control. He split the powerful and problematic Opsikion theme, nearest to the capital, into two smaller themata, the Optimaton and the Bocellarian. To secure military loyalty, he also created the Tagmata, elite regiments of professional soldiers based in Constantinople and personally loyal to the emperor. Evolving from older palace guards like the Scolae and Excubitores, the Tagmata became the empire's core force. Better trained, disciplined, and effective than the provincial Themata, the Tagmata lacked their mobility and reach, making the two forces complementary. In the west, the Pope, the Exarch of Ravenna, and the Lombards continued vying for control of Italy. Pope Zacharias met with Exarch Eutychius and appealed once more to King Liutprand for the return of additional territories. He also sent a message to the restored Emperor Constantine, who was in high spirits. As a result, the emperor was not angered by the Pope's bold appeal for him to renounce iconoclasm. Although still young, Constantine was already a staunch iconoclast. His commitment to the policy had only deepened after Artavasdos's earlier attempt to exploit iconophile sentiments against him. His harshest persecutions were yet to come. For now, he focused eastwards, seeking to capitalize on the weakening Umayyad caliphate. Around that time, Umayyad Caliph Hisham appointed a new patriarch of Antioch for the first time in 40 years. A Syrian monk named Stephen. Both Emperor Constantine and his rival Artavasdos had sought Hisham's support, but he seemingly backed neither side. After Hisham's death, his nephew Al-Walid succeeded him. Suspicious of potential unrest, Al-Walid ordered the deportation of many Cypriot Romans to Syria. However, his reign was soon overshadowed by widespread civil wars that erupted across the caliphate following his uncle's death. Al-Walid himself would not remain in power for long, as the following year, Caliph Al-Walid was assassinated, ushering in a series of short-lived successors as unrest and political instability spread. The Muslim world plunged into the third fitna. The Romans also faced a time of great turmoil as a devastating outbreak of bubonic plague swept through Constantinople. The streets fell silent under the weight of death, and the capital was left severely depopulated, likely at its lowest demographic point in history. The epidemic did not remain confined to the city, spreading to Sicily, Calabria, and other parts of the empire. Amid the turmoil, there was some good news for the Romans. Taking advantage of the Muslim world's chaos, Constantine launched a counteroffensive and by 746 had recaptured Germanicia, the birthplace of the Isaurian Dynasty, along with several cities in northern Syria. He returned with many freed Christians, resettling them in Thrace. Constantine soon launched another expedition, and with his revitalized fleet, regained full control of Cyprus. The imperial navy obliterated the main Umayyad fleet from Syria and Egypt, a decisive blow that catalyzed the collapse of the Umayyads. Though these gains proved short-lived, they disrupted Arab raids in Anatolia and yielded valuable plunder. The collapse of central authority within the caliphate created a power vacuum quickly exploited by rival factions. In the west, the Firhids asserted control. In the east, the Abbasids pressed forward, and in the north, Byzantine influence returned in the Caucasus. While the iconoclast emperor ruled the Roman world, devout iconophile monks remained active in former imperial territories. Chief among them was John of Damascus, living under the Umayyad Caliphate. He was a fierce critic of iconoclasm, but died shortly before Constantine initiated his formal persecutions. In Italy, the Lombards again threatened Ravenna, but Zacharias' intervention saved the exarchate. His diplomacy was so effective that King Ratchis abdicated and retired to monastic life, leaving Aistulf as his successor. In 750, Marwan II was decisively defeated by the Abbasid rebels who took power. Under the new dynasty, the center of gravity of the caliphate shifted eastwards. As a result, the Roman Empire faced reduced pressure along its eastern frontier. The opportunistic Constantine was quick to act. He once again led his forces into Arab-held territory, capturing the cities of Theodosiopolis and Melitene. As with Germanicaea, the cities were looted and their Christian populations resettled to strengthen vulnerable regions of the empire. In the process, Constantine effectively depopulated the Arab-Roman frontier, reducing it to a no-man's land. For all of Constantine's victories in the east, he permanently lost the west. Resistance and diplomacy could only delay the inevitable. The Lombards overwhelmed the Exarchate of Ravenna, which was conquered for good. Venice was likely briefly occupied, but it and the Istrian territories ultimately remained under Roman control. Constantine issued repeated complaints to the Lombards, but he was too preoccupied with the Eastern Front to intervene militarily in the region. Meanwhile, in central Italy, even old Rome was beginning to slip from imperial control. Zacharias, the last Byzantine pope, had died, and his successor, Stephen, was a Latin. Determined to preserve the city, Stephen negotiated a peace treaty with King Aistulf, but it was broken within 4 months, as the Lombard ruler once again demanded Rome's submission. In desperation, the Pope sent repeated envoys to Emperor Constantine, pleading for aid, but received no reply. Constantine by then was fully absorbed in preparation to intensify the enforcement of iconoclasm. The island of Sicily narrowly avoided another Muslim raid from North Africa, a threat cut short by a timely Berber revolt. This would be the last major Muslim offensive in the western Mediterranean for some time, thanks to Constantine's effective upkeep of the Roman navy. Meanwhile, with no aid from the emperor, Pope Stephen turned to the only powerful Catholic monarch nearby, Pepin, king of the Franks. In return for papal recognition as the rightful king of the Franks, Pepin granted Pope Stephen control of the former Exarchate of Ravenna. This opened formal negotiations between the papacy and the Frankish crown, marking Rome's gradual detachment from imperial authority. Meanwhile, the emperor convened the infamous Synod of Hieria, dominated by iconoclast bishops and attended by only one of the 5 patriarchs. The council formally condemned the use of icons and the memory of prominent iconophiles such as Saint John of Damascus. From that point onward, iconoclasm was enforced with increasing severity, including physical persecution. The emperor then launched another campaign against Theodosiopolis and Melitene, once again depopulating and razing both cities. He intended to carry out a similar operation against Samosata, but it never came to fruition. Constantine, like Justinian II before him, undertook extensive repopulation efforts. He relocated the Christian inhabitants of Theodosiopolis and Melitene to Thrace, aiming to restore a region devastated by Slavic and Bulgar incursions. To address Constantinople's sharp population loss, he also transferred the people from Greece into the capital, likely accelerating its Hellenization. These efforts to secure the empire's northern frontier had unintended consequences. Mesopotamian Christians carried the Paulician heresy into the Balkans, while the Bulgar Khanate grew uneasy over the reoccupation and fortification of border cities. It is probably around this time that the emperor regained control of Adrianople. In response, the Bulgars demanded renewed tribute from Constantine. When he refused, they raided deep into Roman territory, reaching the long walls of Anastasius, only to retreat upon learning that the emperor was mobilizing against them. In the west, Rome was again under threat. However, this time, King Pepin inflicted pressure upon the Lombards. He then issued the donation of Pepin, granting the papacy control of the former Exarchate of Ravenna. This marked the birth of the Papal States and the political independence of Rome from Constantinople. Salih ibn Ali, the Abbasid governor of Kinasrin, raided Cilicia, but withdrew upon learning that Constantine was preparing to face him. He did, however, rebuild the fortresses of Melitene and Theodosiopolis, which Constantine had earlier destroyed. In Italy, Lombard forces from the Duchy of Spoleto attacked Otranto. But in a surprising turn, the Romans soon sent an envoy to explore an alliance with their former enemies, this time against the papacy and the Franks. Constantine once more took to the field, defeating the Bulgars at Markeli. He then marched south to subdue Slavic groups in Macedonia. These operations marked the first of 9 campaigns against the Bulgars. The second city of the empire, Thessaloniki, was under threat. Thankfully, the Roman fleet stationed at Skiathos protected it. The Byzantine envoy to the Lombards, Georgios, attempted to reclaim Ravenna through diplomacy, but failed. In Naples, tensions flared up between the Roman Duke, a staunch imperial loyalist and committed iconoclast, and a papal envoy. During this decade, Constantine's enforcement of iconoclasm reached its peak. Notable among its victims was Andreas Calibites, who died under torture. His case was one of many instances where iconodules faced harsh punishment for resisting imperial policy. In response to Roman pressure in Syria, Caliph al-Mansur moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad, near the old Persian seat of Ctesiphon. A civil war in the Bulgar Khanate brought Khan Telets to power. Many Slavs defected to the Roman Empire during this period, and Constantine resettled them to help fortify Asia Minor. Overconfident, Telets attacked Roman territory, prompting a swift and forceful response from the emperor. Constantine deployed his stigmata by ship along the Danube, while leading another force to confront the Bulgars near Enkialos. The battle ended in a decisive Roman victory, considered by some to be Constantine's greatest military achievement. He celebrated a double triumph, while the Bulgars, humiliated, swiftly deposed their incompetent leader. Following the victory at Enkialos, the Romans launched several expeditions against the Bulgars. In the final campaign, however, a storm destroyed Constantine's fleet while it was anchored at Enkialos, a severe blow to both the emperor and public morale. To distract the public, Constantine turned to his favorite form of spectacle, the Hippodrome Games. Upon his return to the capital, he staged the public marriage of monks and nuns to mock their vows of chastity. The same year, the iconophile governor of Sicily, Antiochus, was publicly executed. Beyond matters of public order and religious policies, these persecutions were likely politically motivated. Indeed, in an age of constant warfare, monastic communities represented an untapped source of income and manpower. In a more constructive move to regain favor, the emperor restored Constantinople's aqueduct of Valence. Constantine's concerns about unrest proved justified when a plot involving several nobles and strategoi was uncovered. The conspirators were caught and blinded. More convinced than ever of the need for loyal men in key positions, he elevated Michael Lacanodrakon, a capable soldier of humble origins, to strategos of the Thracision. Lacanodrakon would prove to be a trusted ally, mirroring the emperor's purges in his district. While harsh toward his iconophile opponents, the emperor still cared for his people. He spent a large sum to ransom Roman prisoners captured by Slavs during their raids in the Aegean. This was followed by what may have been the first official Roman-Arab prisoner exchange. After the Arabs failed to take the fortress of Kamachon, each side traded one captive for one of their own. Regarding dynastic matters, the emperor's eldest son and heir, Leo IV the Khazar, married Irene Sarontapekaina of Athens. Arab raids into Asia Minor intensified under Caliph al-Mansur's nephew, Abd al-Wahhab, who plundered the region and captured many. Around 771, Constantine ordered the strategoi of the Anatolikon, Armeniakon, and Bukellarion themes along with the Kiberaioton fleet to trap him. The Arabs, however, fought a desperate but successful breakout. The operation might have succeeded if Michael Lacanodrakon, the capable Thracian strategos, had participated, but Constantine had kept him busy enforcing iconoclast policies. Leo IV and Irene's union produced an heir, the future Constantine VI, securing the continuity of the Isaurian Dynasty. In response to Abd al-Wahhab's raids, the Romans launched a counter-raid in Armenia. Christian Armenians rebelled against the caliphate, but the uprising was quickly crushed. Later, the Roman patrician governing the Byzantine-held part of Armenia was killed, and the caliph ordered his property confiscated. Meanwhile, the Bulgars had recovered from their defeat at Enkialos, and their new Khan, Telerig, resumed the raids into Roman Thrace. In response, the emperor dispatched a large fleet along the Black Sea coast to deter further aggression. Telerig soon agreed to a peace treaty with Constantine. This man, however, proved untrustworthy. He broke the treaty and plotted to seize the town of Beritsa within Roman territory. Warned by his spies in Bulgaria, Constantine swiftly mobilized his stagmata and launched a surprise attack at Litosoria, achieving another decisive victory. In Italy, Charlemagne, son of Pepin, conquered the Lombard kingdom, establishing the Frankish realm as a major power in Western Europe. The Duke of Spoleto also submitted to the new authority, further consolidating his hold over the region. Back in the Balkans, the emperor initiated another show of force by sending a large fleet to intimidate the Bulgars. However, the ships were lost to yet another natural disaster. Unable to defeat the Romans in open battle, Telerig turned to deception. He sent a letter to Constantine claiming he wished to defect and needed the name of Roman agents in Bulgaria. The emperor naively believed him, disclosed the names, leading to the capture and execution of his entire spy network. When Constantine learned he had been deceived, he was furious and quickly launched another campaign. However, he fell ill during the march and had to be taken back toward Constantinople. He never reached the capital, dying on the journey after a reign of 34 years. Constantine V said Copronymus ruled in turbulent times, proving a highly effective political and military leader, even though he ultimately lost Roman Italy. On the other hand, against the Arabs and Bulgars, he secured more victories than many of his predecessors, restoring confidence in the Roman army through major reforms. His creation of the professional tagmata was a key innovation and revitalized the empire's battlefield capabilities. Through steady success in Syria and Thrace, however, Constantine gradually rebuilt the empire and reinforced its geopolitical standing. His relentless pursuit of temporal power came at a heavy cost. The brutal persecution of iconophiles left a lasting stain on his legacy. Even so, some later iconophiles acknowledged Constantine as a tireless and capable ruler, whose efforts laid the groundwork for the empire's recovery in the 9th century.